I worked the night shift at a self storage facility for about a year, and there was one unit, Unit 137, that had been empty, completely empty for over 6 years. No lock on it when I started, nothing inside. I checked more than once because I was bored. About 4 months into the job, someone started locking it every single night. Okay, let me back up. The facility was one of those big ones, rows and rows of metal roll up doors, the kind you see off the highway. I worked the overnight shift 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., mostly just sitting in a little office watching security monitors. Most night, generally nothing happened. People don't come to storage units at 2 a.m. It's the most boring job I ever had, and I mean that. I read like 40 books that year. Unit 137 was on the second level, end of a row, kind of a tucked away where the cameras didn't get a great angle. One of those blind spot units. Every facility's got a few. When I started, the manager walked me through the property, and when we passed 137, he said, "That's one's empty. Owners defaulted years ago. We never auctioned it off. Because of some paperwork issue, it's basically just sitting there, no lock on the door." I actually looked inside once in my first week just out of curiosity. Empty concrete room, bare, nothing in it. Forgot about it completely after that. After 4 months in, and I remember because it was right after a slow holiday weekend, I'm doing my walkthrough around midnight and I notice 137 has a lock on it. A bright, shiny padlock. My first thought was honestly just, oh, I guess someone just rented it. Makes sense, whatever. I made a note in the log and didn't think about it again. Except the next morning, when the day shift guy came in, I mentioned it to him, and he looked confused. He said nobody had rented 137. You'd have seen the paperwork. He handled all the rental agreements. He said maybe the manager forgot to update him. Whatever, not a big deal. He'd look into it. That night, I did my walkthrough again. The lock was gone. Door was unlocked, hanging upon about an inch, same as it had been for years. I want to be honest, at this point, I just thought I misread something, or maybe someone came in and removed it during the day. I didn't think about it as anything weird yet. I made another note and moved on. Then later that same night, maybe an hour or two after my last check, I did another walkthrough and the lock was back on. Same bright padlock, same unit. Now I was actually a little thrown. I stood there for a minute looking at it. The hallway was completely empty. I could see the whole length of it on the camera feed. Nobody had walked through. I checked the camera footage right there on my tablet, scrubbing back through the last hour. Nothing. No one walks down that hallway, and yet there's a lock on the door that didn't have an hour ago. I took it off. I don't know why, I wanted to see what would happen. I put the lock in my pocket and kept walking. For the next 2 weeks, this kept happening. Not every night, maybe every third or fourth night. I'd do a walk around, the unit would be unlocked, same as always. Later in the shift, sometime an hour later, sometimes 3 hours later, there'd be a lock on it. Always the same lock. I started marking it, a little scratch on the underside, so I know if it was actually the same one. It was, every time. I never saw it happen. I check the camera footage obsessively. Every single time, I go back to the footage covering through the hallway for that time window when it must have appeared, and every single time there was nothing. No person, the lock just wasn't there, and then it was. I started doing something probably a little unhinged looking back. I started timing my walkthroughs specifically to try to catch it happening, walking past 137 every 15 minutes instead of doing my normal rounds. For about a week, nothing happened during those nights. No lock appeared at all, like it knew I was watching, which I know sounded insane, but that's genuinely what it felt like. Then one night, I went back to my normal routine, normal walkthrough schedule, not obsessively checking, and around 2 a.m., the lock was back. I had enough of just removing it and walking away. This time, I opened the unit. I want to describe this carefully because this is the part I've never been able to fully explain, even to myself. The unit was not empty. There was a single folding chair in the middle of the room. Metal, the kind you'd find in a church basement, facing the back wall. Just one chair, nothing else. No boxes, no furniture, nothing on the floor except a thin layer of dust that had clearly been undisturbed for years, except for two things. There were drag marks in the dust leading to the chair, like it had been pulled into that exact position recently. And on the seat of the chair, sitting perfectly centered, was the lock. The same lock placed there deliberately, like it had been set down. I stood in the doorway for what felt like a very long time. The unit was completely silent, even quieter than the hallway, if that makes sense. Like the room was somehow absorbing sounds. I did not go in. I genuinely could not make my legs move forward. And then, this is the part I still think about more than anything else. I heard very clearly from inside that unit the sound of metal folding chair creaking, the specific sound a chair makes when someone shifts their weight in it. The chair did not move. I was looking directly at it. It did not move, not even slightly. But I heard that sound from inside that room, like someone was sitting in it and had just shifted. I closed the door. I didn't lock it. I didn't touch the lock at all. I just pulled the door down, walked back to the office, and sat there until 6 a.m. with every light on. I quit 2 weeks later, told them it was for a better paying job, which wasn't true, but I wasn't about to explain the actual reason. Before I left, I asked the manager carefully, trying to sound casual. What's the deal with Unit 137? Why it had been sitting empty for 6 years with a paperwork issue that never gets resolved? He got kind of quiet and said the previous owner had stopped paying rent suddenly. No notice, no contact, just stopped. When they finally got legal access to clear it out, years later, the unit was already empty, which matched what I had seen on day one. But he said something else, almost as an afterthought, the way people do when they're handing you information they don't think is important. He said the previous tenant had used that unit for almost a decade, and according to the original rental application from way back, they listed their occupation as process server. And apparently, before that, for a few years, they worked as an executioner assistant at a state prison, back when the facility still did manual execution using a chair. I never went back to that facility, not even to pick up my last paycheck. I had it mailed. I think about that lock a lot, the way it would just be there, placed, like someone wanted to make sure that room stayed shut. And every time someone, me, opened it, they just put it back patiently, like it was their job. If anyone's worked night security somewhere and had something like this happen, an object that moves on its own, places itself somewhere specific, like it has a purpose, I'd really like to hear about it because I've never been able to explain what that chair was for and who was sitting in it.